implicit versus explicit communication. My stepson, back when he was a tiny tot, he got in trouble and I said, no television today. It was a Saturday, no television. He said, okay, fine, no television today. Smart kid, unfortunately. Here was the challenge. He didn't watch TV all day, that was great. And then I went downstairs at 6 p.m. and he was watching TV. And I said, hey, no television today. He said, hey, it's tonight. I was not being explicit in my communication. I was saying no television today. I wasn't saying until X o'clock, etc. When we want more accountability with our people, we're generally not being explicit. There are 5 types of communication. Only 2 move the needle. Most people spend a lot of time info sharing in meetings. Dude, send an email, okay? Send a memo. Right? Get all the bodies in one room and just info share. Why? That's like the American standard for meetings. Let's info share for an hour. Ugh, it's a waste. Info sharing is one type of communication. The second is sharing of oneself. Very popular in California. I feel... Well, let me just do an interpretive dance. That would better explain how I feel. Right. So there's sharing of oneself. There's a very popular one in certain areas of the world, which is debating, decision-making, and point-proving. Okay? Which is mostly debating and point-proving. Okay? That's the third type. Then there are the only 2 that consistently move the needle. And those are requests and promises. Bob, can I have this report in this format with this data by Friday at 4? Yes, Sue, you can. Or no, Sue, you can't, but you can have it by Monday at 8. Right? How much time are you spending in your meetings and your communications giving very specific requests and asking for, soliciting very specific promises? Please write down, oh, look at that nice little chart you're doing. Please write down 2 columns. Pick one scenario where you want to have more accountability from somebody in your life. Column number 1, all the explicit, abundantly clear things you were asking them to do. Column number 2, the implicit, the things where you think that they're getting the Vulcan mind meld or they're dialing into the psychic network and they're reading your mind, okay? One situation, just take a couple minutes, where you want to see more accountability with somebody. The first column, all the explicit directions you're giving them. Second column, all the implicit, the stuff that you want but you're not articulating. I want us to see as leaders how we create low accountability. Okay? Just take a sec. It's eye-opening, might be a smidge painful, but we're here to look in the mirror as leaders. Right? Just take a sec. What are your explicit? And then what are your implicit, your implied, your I hope they figure this out, but I haven't actually told them expectations. All right. Great. And then start to look at the ratio of explicit to implicit. The first time I did this, I was gobsmacked. I was like, oh my God, smacking my gob, because most of the stuff was implicit. I wasn't being very explicit. I wasn't being very direct. And I know sometimes in certain areas of the country, not here, people are so concerned about being polite, just in certain southern states, that they don't say exactly what it is that they need. You know? I come across this in Atlanta a lot. I'm like, guys, just say what you need. Say what you need so that your team doesn't make you crazy. Say what it is. How many of you guys had an equal amount of implicit, explicit? It's usually rare. How many of you had more implicit? Thank you for your candor. Okay. How many of you had more explicit? Yeah. So we had a lot more implicit. So a thought, to be great leaders, how can we just say what it is that we need? And I'm going to teach you about stances in a few minutes. And it helps us to step into another character sometimes, because as leaders, we're often very predictable, and our people know how to push our buttons. Is that true? That's my experience. But we have to be able to shape-shift and jump into different stances to get better results. All right, when we aren't direct, when we aren't making our needs abundantly clear, our people will go again into the limbic system, because they don't want to mess up, they're not sure, they want to bug us. Question? Thank you, yes?
How do you reconcile being direct and specific with the fact that you have people on your team that are supposed to be the subject matter experts?
How do you reconcile being explicit? Hang on a second.
and my team, I have people that I actually hope know their area better than I know their area. So I'm looking for, to some degree, for guidance from them. How do I be specific in those situations?
Yeah. And the sort of guidance that you're looking for is?
So
deadlines?
Yeah, for example, on an HR matter, how should we handle this HR matter? What are your suggestions? Give me a level of specificity that I can understand.
Got it. Good. Okay. Thank you. Good question. So when we are at the kind of disadvantage, if you will, of not being the subject matter expert, but we can't know everything. That's why we pay them, right? How do we get more explicit work from our people? Well, for starters, I think it's really powerful to train all of our people in what we're talking about, and to create a culture of. In California, we're starting to call it healthy conflict, but really it's asking the tough questions. It's having those difficult conversations. It's having look, you guys know this stuff, I don't. What are my 3 strategies? What are the pros and cons of each? Most people know what a Ben Franklin is, Ben Franklin chart, pros, cons, right? Just give me the 3 strategies and the pros and cons of each, and then here comes the accountability. Can I have that by Friday at 2 p.m. in this format? So it's training them. We come across this with engineers all the time, because they're like, oh, that's going to be really hard to do. You want that? That's a whole new chunk of code. Going to take a long time. Going to cost a lot. We're going to need to shop to get that done. And in situations like that, we say, gosh, well, that's great. We don't have the budget. You guys are so smart. I totally know you guys can figure it out. Give me 3 strategies. The most likely, the least likely, the one that you think will probably work, So we find that throw it back to them, give them 3. People can handle plus or minus 5. 5 plus or minus 2. The human brain, men when it comes to grocery lists have a lower threshold. Sorry guys. It's 5 plus or minus 2. So if they're on a good day, they can do 5. If they're on a great day, they can remember 7. Okay, most people. And then if they're on a lousy day, they can remember 3. So since people can handle 5 plus or minus 2, just ask for 3. You're just going to hedge your bets. It's going to work out better, okay? So ask for 3 options. Give them some accountability. What are your rewards and consequences? Do you have rewards and consequences set up for your accountability? You do? So like they get in trouble or they get treats?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually through recognition more than candy.
Than candy. Okay, more recognition than candy. Good, and it's better for the dentist visit. So good. Okay, is that helpful? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so let's keep going. And thank you for waiting back there because I couldn't see that question. Now, here's the thing. We find that often we're sensing a breakdown before it actually happens, but yet we don't kind of go right head on for it. Have you guys experienced that before? You're kind of like, Sue seems like she's flailing. I probably should do something about it. When we go into companies and we do what's called a cultural assessment, we're always looking for the highest points of leverage. I want you guys to start to think about where are the highest points of leverage in my company? Who are the people that I could cultivate and get the biggest bang for the buck? Because often it's quite surprising. Often we find that as we tremendously increase rapport, which I'll be showing you in just a few minutes, we actually end up stepping into the mind of the human being. And just as our friend said, we don't need candy, we need recognition. How many of your people know what their next 2 potential promotions are? Okay, that's usually the case. None of us. So here's the thing. Once your people understand what their next 2 possible promotions are, no promises. HR people will say, don't promise. Those promotions could be up, they could be across, or they could be within. Example, one of our clients, home furnishing company, they had customer service reps. These are women in their 40s. They're professional customer service reps. They're really good at what they do. Okay? They make $35,000 a year, and that's just what they do. They make $35,000 and they're customer service reps. Those guys are untapped. What are they doing? They're talking to customers who are unhappy. They're talking to customers who are saying, where's my order, etc. What if we were to teach them to upsell, downsell, and cross-sell? What would happen if we made them into little baby sales reps? That would be their next promotion, if you will. Because the CEO was like, there is no promotion for them. This is what they do, end of story. And I said, I'm not going for that. So we rounded them up and we sat down and we said, if we taught you guys some basic selling skills, and if you got a little bonus whenever you did an upsell, downsell, or cross-sell, because you're talking to the customer on the phone anyway, would that be exciting to you? Would it be fun to learn that new skill set? And they said, wow, yeah. We did 2.5 hours I really hate long trainings because people zone out anyway. We did 2.5 hours on the neuroscience of sales. Here's what happened. For starters, okay, low margin, low revenue, right? 2.5 hours of neuroscience of sales training, and of course we gave them scripts. You have to give people scripts until they're really comfortable with it. What happened was these reps, or excuse me, these CSR, these customer service reps, now bring in 10% additional revenue to the company. The client service reps upped the revenue across the board of the company by 10%. The reps in the field boosted theirs 20% on the margin, the high margin revenue. So what we did was by enrolling, by being really explicit, by being really direct and focused with those CSRs, those customer service reps, with evolving them into their next role, with not paying them more, just paying them a little bonus, we were able to find this untapped leverage point within the company. So now our CSRs want their next evolution. And what they said to us recently was, okay, we're doing all this great stuff, upselling, downselling, cross-selling, but our reps in the field, they're not very efficient. We want to make our reps in the field more efficient. Why don't we become like regional managers? Why don't we become sort of like regional managers where we actually provide campaigns and promotions and strategies for our reps in the field? So now that's what they're doing this year. This is what they did last year. They made the revenue go so far high up, and now they're going to change it again this year. This is what happens when we get people into their cortex. They were not in fight, flight, freeze. They were just kind of in, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, kind of stuck in this identity that was pretty limited. We then helped them shift their identity to be CSRs who now had sales skills. Where could we go from there? Does that make sense?